is this? Chris, who's the guest picker going to be?
Well, we've run the gamut of guest pickers. We've had superstars in country music like Kenny Chesney and Brad Paisley and Katy Perry famously. And last week we had Alice Cooper, so we had rockers represented. We're going to go in a very different direction this time, and we're very proud to have Marcus Luttrell here, who will speak to the Alabama team, but who's the author of Lone Survivor, and also was depicted in the movie by Mark Wahlberg. So on Veterans Day week, I think it's appropriate. It's a tie-in because he is talking to Alabama's team at Saban's request, and he's a football fan. I think he's from Texan, so we think it'll be an honor for us to have him there.
Talk about coming to Tuscaloosa, and just what is it like being here at Bryant-Denny Stadium?
Colder than it has been. I don't recall bringing a top coat to Alabama before, but everybody is kitted out with more gear than we had last week in Michigan. No, it's fun. I mean, I think that we've been here so many times. The games have had different feels, different textures. Now I think a #1 team coming in as an underdog, Mississippi State trying to prove that they're worthy of that ranking and that they're a playoff team, but an underdog, of course, at a place where they haven't had much success over the years. There's a lot in that. Alabama's sort of position with the playoff committee is interesting because they've been very vulnerable away from home. Could have lost a few games, as everybody here knows, but they've been very dominant at home. And so now they have sort of control of their destiny with 2 home games that everybody's going to be watching, and if they win those, they're going to be in the bracket, provided they take care of business in Atlanta. But I mean, in terms of the regular season, they have control of their destiny, they have the home field advantage, and we'll see if anybody can come in here and beat them in this place, because if they can't, I like their chances of being a playoff team.
What is it like for you to be calling the games this year with Herb Street this year? It's prime time.
It's fun. I mean, it's easier when game day is in the same location as the ABC game, but no, it's a challenge. It's a fun kind of challenge. We'll get to fly down to Miami, watch this game on TV, get ready to call Florida State Miami, which obviously is another game with playoff implications, and then look forward to the postseason, where it'll be a real thrill to be able to call one of the semifinals and the championship game.
Been surprised by Blake Sims this year?
Not terribly. I mean, not really. I think it's a complicated thing when you evaluate Blake, because he's been a different player on the road. It's a different offense on the road, as you people know. And I think that at home he's been in command. The communication's been really good with the sidelines, and the offense has clicked. Away from home, it's a work in progress. It continues to be a struggle. When you look at the numbers overall on paper, it's a very, very impressive body of work for Blake. But then when you look at some of the road games and how things have been won, it's a real collective effort with defense and the running game, and not putting it 100% in the quarterback's hands, which is also an indication about where the offense thinks it is in road games. So I think he's been better than most people expected. I guess it hasn't really stunned me, because he's a very talented player.
Chris, you being the host, you don't always make the picks, but what are your thoughts on the matchup between Mississippi State and Alabama tomorrow?
Well, I mean, I think it's about Mississippi State being able to show that they're for real. If Dak Prescott is a Heisman-winning type quarterback, he'll be able to come in here and direct an offense and not be intimidated by the crowd and Alabama's defense. And they got a very, very tough kind of attack to stop, as you know. I mean, it's a scheme that has given Alabama some trouble in the past when executed really well. I mean, it's not dissimilar from what Auburn runs. Obviously, you've got a quarterback who is one of those alpha-type quarterbacks that we've seen in this conference, whether it's Cam Newton or Tim Tebow. The comparisons have been made to Prescott. Saban says a much better thrower than Tebow. That was his assessment. But I think that it's about the quarterback, and it's about Josh Robinson and tackling those guys, which is very, very hard to do over 60 minutes. And then Mississippi State sort of stepping up and managing things on defense, because they've been a little bit vulnerable on defense. I mean, Alabama will have a good plan. They've seen what works against Mississippi State, and they'll try to attack it, I'm sure. And it's interesting because you don't know how the game is going to evolve. You could very easily see it being one of those defensive struggles, a low-scoring game with high stakes in the SEC like we've seen before. You could also see both offenses having success and it being a much higher-scoring game. So I don't have a crystal ball, but I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Chris, what do you think about the playoff system in general, and what it's done for college football as far as creating extra discussion, extra teeth gnashing with the fans and all that kind of thing?
Well, I mean, there's always going to be teeth gnashing. There's always going to be controversy. There will always be people who think that the human element in choosing teams is going to be flawed.
Right.
You talk to a certain percentage of the coaches, maybe 15, 20%, who really believe that there's an agenda involved, that biases come into play in that committee room. Then you talk to fans, and a much bigger percentage are convinced the committee cannot be objective, that they're going to have some agenda based on their background come into play. I don't think that's the case. I do believe in the integrity of the committee. I think they'll do their best. I think they're far more informed than I was as a poll voter, or the typical poll voters are over the years, and they'll have more information. They'll have the collective experience of talking things out, hashing it over. Might be a photo bomb by Desmond Howard. Be careful, Des. Payback. You know what they say about payback. No, I mean, I have belief in the committee's methods. I think that, you know, when you judge it now, it's just kind of a partial snapshot, and everybody takes great notice that, oh my God, they dropped Florida State behind Oregon, even though the Seminoles didn't lose, and what does that mean? And what are they going to do if Mississippi State loses a game? Or what's going to happen to them? We'll talk about all those things. It's kind of unknown. I mean, we don't know how they're going to react, but I think it's good for the sport because you want a bunch of games with playoff implications and hopefully a lot of different regions. I've said this before, you know, when we're in the SEC and out of the SEC, it's better for the sport to have games around the country with playoff impact down the stretch. That's just obvious. And so, you know, if it turns out that Arizona State's games or Ohio State's games, Oregon's games are really high-impact games, TCU, Baylor, as well as SEC games, that'll be better for the sport. It'll create more interest. I mean, obviously, this conference is going to have its say, and the games here and the Iron Bowl and Atlanta and so on are going to have playoff impact. But I think it's going to be always better to have a bunch of contenders from around the country be in play at the end.
Oh yeah, and every week is just bigger than ever now.
Yeah, I mean, here's the disappointing thing. I'll be honest with you. This sport does not build to a crescendo. You can look at the schedule and you can see what it's going to be like next week and the week after when the SEC gets in its virtual bye season.
Right.
These scrimmages that pass for games in November, which I think are really bad for the sport. They help people heal up. I don't know that fans like them. They're really bad in general for the health of the sport to step out of conference and play nobody when the excitement is supposed to be building for the playoff.
Right.
And I think not just in the SEC but around the country, the schedule's not very good in the next couple weeks. And so when you're supposed to be excited and, oh my God, look at all these games that are impacting the potential bracket, you look around and it's just not a very good schedule in weeks to come. That's not our problem Saturday. You got this game, you got the Florida State-Miami game, and a few others that are big. But I think ideally where this is going down the line, you'd love to have a stretch run in this sport that's like stretch runs in other sports with playoff implications all over the place, excitement building week by week. I don't know that the schedule is going to allow for that.
Chris, I'm sure you've been asked this question a million times, but can you talk about Corso's segment at the end where he picks the mascot head? And do you ever know who he's going to pick, and do you have the insight on tomorrow?
Yeah, we don't cross-examine him on who he's going to pick, but sometimes on Friday when a mascot head shows up in a plastic bag, you can figure it out. I mean, we sort of leave that entertainment portion of the show to him. It's in good hands. He's got an amazing instinct for being a showman. The fact that he thought it up in the first place, the fact that it caught on and it's developed to become more than just a headgear. It's a skit sometimes involving props and other people, and the guest pickers have had a good time playing along. I mean, nobody had ever ripped the head off, of course, so Katy Perry, when she took Big Al's head off of his head and threw it on the floor, was a first in the history, and I guarantee nobody's going to rip off whatever mascot head he puts on tomorrow. I don't think Marcus Luttrell's going to do that, but you know, I think that it's sort of the signature part of the show. I mean, it's the last minute of the show. It sort of signals that, all right, the pregame's over, the talk is finished, games are kicking off, let's go. And I think that's sort of the place that it has in the pop culture of the sport.
All right, that's it, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See, appreciate your interest.